Okay, everyone's connection is terrible today.
Mine's fine.
Connection is really bad. Are you getting like breaking up?
Recording in progress.
And they're back.
Yeah. Yeah.
The top is more scandalous than I thought it was.
Oh, me too. When I signed on,
I think we're all wearing very cleavagey tops today.
Yeah.
Not all of us.
I definitely came on with lots of boob showing.
Yeah, it's just that kind of a day.
Randall and I are being prudes.
I saw a meme today that was something like, why would I waste my good boob years?
Well, so my day, I decided that I would go to the gym in the afternoon. So I just spent the morning at work in gym clothes, went to the gym in the afternoon, showered. And then I'm like, why am I going to put on different clothes when all I'm doing today is podcast recording? So I've been in my jam pants since like 4.
There you go.
Dude, I am in yoga clothes at least 2 days out of every week now. I wake up and I'm like, yeah, it's going to be a yoga day.
I went to a museum today, guys, in leggings.
Mm-hmm. You go everywhere in leggings, Helen.
I know I do. Yeah, I do. Leggings and a sports bra. That's basically what I wear.
Are you wearing a sports bra? That's a great sports bra for you.
I know, right? Thank you.
Wow.
Calvin Klein, right?
Yeah. You don't have uniboob. That's impressive.
Yeah, usually mine are like the Victoria's Secret Sport, which is basically the double layer sports bra, is good for liftage and cleavage. But also you're like, I'm in the gym, who fucking cares? I just need them to not move.
Yeah.
All right. Well, speaking of boobs that move a lot.
Speaking of tits.
Yeah.
Oh, Dana wins the transition today.
Well done, Dana.
Vanity, my favorite sin. Welcome to You're No Fun Anymore, the podcast where we deal with our nostalgia. I'm Randall.
I'm Dana.
I'm Bryce.
I'm Alexandra. And I'm Helen with the sports bra.
And today we are diving into The Devil's Advocate, or The Devil Went Ham in Greenwich. Yeah.
He really did go ham. He went
all
this
ham.
Is
like extra glazed ham. It's a lot of ham.
Honey baked ham with pineapple on top.
Covered in cheese. It is ham covered in cheese.
A young attorney has the chance of a lifetime.
We want you to come to New York. All expenses, first class, travel and lodging, you and your wife.
Oh my God. He will enter a place of wealth and ambition.
We've got 40 partners vested at the moment. He's got you scheduled for 15 minutes, so make the most of it.
John Milton.
Kevin Lomax.
Well, what's that like? One day you're putting them away, next day you're setting them free.
Takes a little getting used to.
Pays better though, doesn't it?
Welcome to Babylon, Ma.
Speak of the devil.
A world of power and seduction.
Who's that with the senator?
Controlled by one man.
I swear he can hear us. Hell, he can smell us.
He will make your dreams come true.
Want to come upstairs and...
Now?
He will grant your fondest wish.
I'm just warming my hands on your talent. You know what I see? I see the future of this law firm.
He knows your greatest fear.
Milton is into everything. Arms brokering, chemical weapons, toxic waste, money laundering for the Eastern Bloc. I mean, it goes on and on.
I don't like it here, Kevin.
And he knows the price of your soul.
Let's make a deal. Who are you?
Oh, I have so many names. I'm here on the ground with my nose in it since the whole thing began. God likes to watch. He's an absentee landlord.
Keanu Reeves.
He's always been there. I know that now.
Al Pacino.
As God sleeps late.
We will win.
It's my time now.
The Devil's Advocate.
Content warning. This selected film may contain scenes depicting the following: graphic violence, implied sex with a minor, rape, murder, suicide, animal sacrifice, full frontal nudity, sex, descriptions of molestation, language, drinking, mild body horror, unnecessary political cameos, gaslighting, breathtaking incredulousness from a main character, profane amounts of scene chewing, unlicensed set design, abusive home remodeling, criminally awful accents, and smoking. And now, back to your regularly scheduled podcast.
Yeah, I mean, this is a couple years after he got the Scent of a Woman.
Hoo-ah! It is full hoo-ah mode.
Yeah. Oh, it's taking that and went, let's push it a little bit higher.
Little bit higher.
He saw everybody doing the impressions of him and Scent of Women and is like, you know what? I like that. I'm going to just go there.
How could I top that? I don't know. Maybe I need to like sing and dance to Frank Sinatra as I'm playing the literal devil.
I think every serious star from the 70s has a movie where they became a parody of themselves.
Totally.
Christopher Walken has it, De Niro has it, and this is Pacino's. Like he was on the verge in Scent of a Woman, and this one just fully pushed him over the edge into parody of Al Pacino.
Totally. I think I also saw these back, like, I think I saw Scent of a Woman at my cousin's house. And then the next movie they rented was this.
Helen claims I saw this.
I'm not you. I think you would have, but also it would have been
remember?
100%. I mean, it was inappropriate for me to watch it at my
But
cousin's
I
house.
also very well could have gotten out of the room when it started getting really creepy.
So pretty early on then.
Yeah. I have 100% seen this multiple times growing up because in my house, we worshipped at the altar of Saint Keanu.
Why do I remember it being like, isn't it from
97.
97? So we weren't growing up when it came out. We were
I was in my first year of college.
I was graduating high school. I was growing
I was
up.
13.
Okay, it was inappropriate. For
Well,
Alex.
speaking of 1997, yes, it's inappropriate for a
It was
13-year-old.
definitely inappropriate for me.
The year was 1997. Early September, arguably the most famous nun that is not of the flying variety, Mother Teresa, passes away, dies in Calcutta, India at the age of 87.
Thank you for clarifying what passes away is.
Yes. After over 10 years of declining cardiac health. The lionizing of her legacy had begun pretty much right after that. It was the source of much criticism. There's a whole book that Christopher Hitchens wrote about it. But eventually her canonization into sainthood would be completed nearly 20 years later. So yeah, that is Saint Mother Teresa. The world's most famous Finnish Dorset sheep, Dolly, becomes headline news this summer as the first mammal cloned from an adult somatic cell. The cloned sheep would live for another 6 years from its birth. It gave birth to several lambs, and while not being the first cloned animal, she is arguably the most well-known and contributed vastly to the advancement of stem cell research, specifically into reprogramming cells and gene editing. In late March, the bodies of 39 members of Heaven's Gate were discovered by the local sheriff's department in San Diego. The ritual suicide, set to coincide with the passing of the Hale-Bopp comet, became one of the largest tabloid obsessions, eventually turning into caricature and diving full-on into parody. There's a wonderful doc out of it.
I just watched
it's really
it,
good.
But we're not
I watched
turning
it.
this into a cult and murder podcast.
No, it's not that.
Are you sure we're not? Because it's a good documentary. It really is.
Yeah.
Well, speaking of murder, one of the most infamous spree killings happens over 3 months this year, with 5 victims dead at the hands of Andrew Cunanan.
Oh, God, yeah.
The most noteworthy, not noteworthy, that's a
Versace.
terrible word.
Versace.
The most well-known of these was Gianni Versace, who
We
was
still need to finish that.
It's great.
Gianni Versace, who was shot in the back of the head outside of his Miami Beach home. Cunanan later shot himself, left no suicide note. And to this day, his motives for the cross-country murders remain unknown.
Except if you watch the American Crime Story, because they totally.
Oh yeah, this story's been made into films, television shows, movies, so many times over. Because, it was kind of an obsession.
Well, also kind of
we
like
get into a lot of obsessions.
out of nowhere, you know?
And finally, speaking of obsessions, the Sensation Art Exhibition opens at the Royal Academy of Arts in London, featuring a collection of notorious, histrionic, and controversial pieces by 42 different artists. The press frenzy built for weeks about this show, so much so that the windows of the RAA were broken out of just protest and anger. Most derided when this show opened was the British artist Marcus Harvey's gigantic 9'11" portrait of infamous murderer Myra Hindley. It's a mosaic that forms her mugshot, constructed using casts of infants' hands. Yeah, and so
It was all handprints. It's all handprints that like
tiny
make up.
children handprints.
Yeah,
messed up.
Yeah, tabloid coverage over this depiction was immense. Some calling it, quote, sick exploitation of dead children. So the massive portrait had to be removed after it was twice vandalized, once by paint and again by eggs, on its first day by 2 fellow artists. So they took it down and it ended up being restored, and they returned it 2 weeks later to finish out the rest of the exhibition, now with an armed guard and a perspex screen. So over 300,000 people would attend this exhibition, and it would also tour into Berlin and New York. We freaked out about, not that one, but the
Chris Ophelia's Virgin Mary.
Yeah, the Virgin
With
Mary.
the elephant dung on as the pedestal.
Yeah.
Well, we didn't freak out.
Well,
Giuliani
yeah.
freaked out.
A lot of people freaked out. There's a lot of protests.
Just because of
Brooklyn Art Museum.
Giuliani.
And speaking of people flocking to see ostentatiously flamboyant, morally dubious portraits, October 17th, 1997 was when The Devil's Advocate actually opens. It opens at number 2. It takes in a little over $12 million, just under fellow newcomer I Know What You Did Last Summer, which took in 15. Though it never hit number 1 in its entire run, it had a really long run. It was a minor success, taking about $61 million domestically for a total of 153 worldwide. Yeah, this is had a little trouble when it was in production. Took a long time to get off the ground, but people seem to enjoy it.
Kinda.
What do we think about it?
Oh my God, it's so long.
It's
So
really
long.
long. It's really slow.
And also,
So long.
it drags.
Also, just a quick thing. I think this might be one of the times that I actually remembered almost every single news bit that you brought up of the year. I was like,
Okay.
oh, I was actually like cognizant at this time. Like I remembered things.
I was almost an adult.
I was almost an adult. Like I was like the Dolly, the Cunanan murders kind of were in my
Mhm.
memory. But yeah, it was so long, this movie.
yes.
And we were watching it with our parents.
Oh God.
And did not realize how much boob there was.
Yeah.
So
So
much.
much boob. Way more
Not
boob.
just boob, not just
Frontal.
Full
Bush.
frontal.
Yeah, totally.
Everything.
And like
Yeah.
very not graphic sex, I mean, but like
It's relatively
It
graphic.
was a little
yeah.
graphic.
It was definitely
To the point where my mom was like,
I mean,
she
the
went to
one,
wash
the
dishes.
one
at one
with
point.
Keanu and Charlize Theron, there was a second where I was like, this is kind of porn.
Yeah,
It's
it's
a little bit
and
kind of
it made
porn.
me realize like how exploitative sex scenes used to be, like
of women.
in the
Yeah.
90s and movies in general. You know, like
Well, there was
the-
Keanu butt in it too, so it wasn't just exploitative to her.
Keanu butt, like side butt with some like pants around it. You know, like
yeah, with like top
Those weird
like
gray
like black
boxers.
cleavage, not like
yeah,
not
it was like
full-on
butt
butt.
cleavage. It was like
cleavage.
framed butt.
That's more than you got in a lot of movies from the male side. And considering there was so much female nudity in this
So much
movie,
female
at
nudity.
least we got some naked Keanu.
And this
Yeah.
must have been this was like Charlize
It was her
Theron's
breakout.
her big
Yeah, she
breakout
was
role because
21.
She was such a baby.
she was a baby.
She
She
was-
had a
She still
baby
had the
face.
baby face.
Stunning
back. Like
in
it was
this
still
movie.
like
Also, they were both
Even with that
so-
terrible perm,
they were
she was
so
stunning.
beautiful.
She's
she's
beautiful.
always stunning. I mean,
I know, but it is unreal how beautiful she is.
when they tried to make her look like what's her name in Monster, I was
Yeah.
like, she's still pretty. Like she's still pretty.
Well, if we're going to talk about Charlize, which I'm happy to do,
Yeah.
what I noted, and I think this has come up a couple of times in the movies that we've watched, a lot of the movies we watch are like male heavy, male superstar forward movies, but all of the best performances in them are the women that are just starting out, like Kirsten Dunst in Interview with the
Mhm.
Vampire. It's very similar situations. She gives such a goddamn good performance in this movie, especially as her first one.
Yeah.
And I think
she's 100% wrung out. Like you
Mhm.
can tell she is at the end of her rope.
except for the Southern accent, which everybody's Southern accent
Yeah,
comes in and out.
everybody's kind of goes.
I don't
in
even
and
know
out.
why they had to do that Southern accent. Like I understand
They're supposed to be from Florida.
They're from fucking Florida. It's
I mean,
not like they're
Gainesville's kind of.
Greenville Southern.
panhandle. I
Florida.
get it, but like
Florida also tends to be a lot of transplants because people end up moving
Yeah.
there.
Right, but
from
the whole
other
point is that
states.
they're Floridians who come to
Yeah.
New York. Like that's the
Yeah.
whole point.
But
Yeah.
I agree with you that her performance was phenomenal. But they did her character real dirty. Like
Oh my
there
God.
was
so dirty.
nothing there.
No.
I had this big joke planned for you, Dana, where I'm like, this is a modern remake of Macbeth, and she plays Lady Macbeth, and I was gonna go for it
Hilarious.
for as long as possible until I saw your face get angrier and angrier and angrier. But like, I just can't.
Well, I was going to bring up, because this was Bryce's selection, with all of the movies you have railed against with the female portrayals and the lack of feminist storytelling, I cannot think of a less feminist movie than this
Oh no,
one.
no! This
one
movie is
just
pretty
like
bad.
painful.
And I asked Randall yesterday, I'm like, are the offensive bits in this movie because it's a movie about the devil and they're offensive on purpose? Or is this just a 1997 movie and everybody kind of sucks?
I think it's that. I think it's the
the
latter
latter.
one. I think it's
Yeah.
100% the latter one because what this movie's trying to do with the whole devil portrayal,
It's so
seems-
ham-fisted.
Yeah, the hammy devil,
Yeah.
the red devil ham. If
Please,
we're,
please,
you know,
yeah.
is like trying to create this charismatic, seductive character on paper. It seems like to me, you know, like naming him John Milton. I mean,
Yeah.
there's so many kind of like literary and artistic allusions in this that are trying to be deeper than the movie actually pulls off.
That's
John Milton's Lucifer is my favorite literary
Yeah, totally.
character, 100%, because he is this complicated,
semi-sympathetic,
really sympathetic victim of circumstances. And all he wants to do is kind of like be his own person, you know? And he's really nuanced and layered. And like what he says makes total sense to you, you know? Like when he argues for his freedom, you totally understand, you buy it, you know? Like you are on board with him. Al Pacino, for all his great scene chewing, there's no point where I buy his argument, you know? Like there's no point where I'm like, oh yeah, you got it right. God's an asshole and he's playing with all of us. Like he really, really goes for it 100%, but it doesn't live up to that same
But you
level.
never also see that God is an asshole. You just see Satan's an asshole.
Yeah, Satan's an asshole who's like manipulating everybody, even though he says he doesn't.
That's a common theme that everybody talks, especially in devil movies, that everybody talks about what a dick God is and how he's betrayed and abandoned all of us, but you never see God. I think the only time you ever get God is in Dogma, when Alanis Morissette shows up.
You know what? Who else does it well with God being a total dick? Supernatural.
That is very true, actually. That is very true.
God is.
And I think it's also hard to get like an anti-hero that actually works as an anti-hero. You know, like it's tried many times. It's not successful most of the time. I think Killmonger in Black Panther is the last time I've seen a really good anti-hero on screen.
There's potential here. So when you look at the introduction to Keanu's character,
he's an asshole.
But he like gets this. He abuses a girl on the stand in order to get his pedophile client off, simply because somebody might have suggested that he could lose and he can't deal with that. And then he immediately goes out and does shots and bites his wife ass in public. And like, what a great character setup if you're trying to set up a character to be reprehensible, to be an asshole.
Yeah, it's true. Yeah.
And then they didn't take it anyway.
Well, but I think that's the problem, is that they set him up to be reprehensible in that first scene. Yeah. But then never again are you supposed to think he is reprehensible. He's supposed to be the one that is being corrupted, but didn't.
He's amoral. He comes into it 100% amoral from the beginning.
Like she is too.
He's never.
From the beginning too.
Right, but they never after that first one. Her character changes entirely from that first scene to when they moved to New York. Like she's a completely different character.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, they're both celebrating that they just.
They get this guy off, and then she leans over and she's like, "It's party time." It's like, holy shit, lady.
Yeah.
But my take on the movie is that it's one that really badly wants to be deep, but there is nothing underneath it, because all it really is giving a bunch of really big monologues to Al Pacino and letting him go.
I mean,
also, I just had this thought. What if this isn't how Al Pacino gets his soul, but what if he's already in hell and this is him being tortured?
I would
maybe
who Keanu's in hell?
Yeah.
Where
he's doing it over and over.
Yeah.
Like a Groundhog Day thing.
I feel like the trope is always, you know, you're saving the soul of a good man, and then the devil will come back again to try and take that soul from you. He's always going to come back. I don't know if it's a hell thing so much, but it's because it's not that deep. This movie is just not
that deep.
Honestly, there's like a good 90-minute supernatural thriller in this movie.
Yes. Yeah.
But then it's like, it's so bloated. It's so
like
bloated.
Two separate movies. If they had just taken the Charlize Theron movie, which was basically Rosemary's Baby without the baby.
Totally.
If they had just done that,
she's seen,
that would have been great. And you could have still had the devil because of the whole, like she could have had the lawyer husband whose boss is the devil and who comes in and rapes her at one point.
Yeah.
Which again, we'll get to that probably. But the stuff with Keanu, it doesn't make sense. It doesn't go anywhere. We see all this
so repetitive. It's
so repetitive and amount to nothing. They amount to absolutely nothing.
How many scenes with his sister or half sister do we need?
Connie Nielsen.
Like, he stares at her.
Oh, really? Because you get it when he's staring at her, and then you get it at the party, and then again and again. It's like, okay, I get it.
They're like hammering it in.
Sorry.
They're hammering
Connie Nielsen is a very attractive woman, but if you got Charlize Theron at home, you stay with Charlize Theron.
Yeah,
you do not straight. Come on.
So I did want to bring this up. So one of my biggest issues with this movie is how it's got some really great, interesting parts to it, but it is real hack.
Yeah.
And the script was in and out of production quite a few times. It went through. Al Pacino refused this role multiple times.
Oh, did he?
Yeah, because the script was not really up to snuff. So they kept going back and going back. This is written by Jonathan Lemke and Tony Gilroy. To give you an idea of where the literary side comes and then the schlock comes from. So Tony Gilroy, who one of my favorite films, The Cutting Edge, is where he got started. He wrote that. He also wrote Dolores Claiborne. He wrote and directed Michael Clayton.
Wow.
And ends up doing, the Bourne movies. He also co-wrote Rogue One and, further on the line. Jonathan Lemke, he did one episode of Moonlighting, then worked on 21 Jump Street, then wrote The Devil's Advocate, which was his first film. After that, did Lethal Weapon 4, Red Planet, Shooter, and now does the Shooter TV series.
Oh my God.
So it gives you an idea of who's balancing that out.
Yep.
Oh God, it's like the worst group project ever.
Yeah. He apparently did also do like some punch-ups on Demolition Man, which...
I mean, you can tell that like Pacino's monologues there was a lot put into them, you know?
Totally.
Absolutely. Because they had to.
Although I will admit, I spaced out of every single one of them. Around minute 10, I would be like, all right, it's just sound now. It's just Al Pacino.
Yeah, it's a lot of yelling.
It does seem though as well like everybody was there to like have a good time with Al Pacino and just kind of like sit there and get kind of like
loving it. Yeah.
Like he's loving it, but also everybody is like just eating it up, having their like hair blown back by Al Pacino's delivery is just...
He's the only reason we're still talking about this movie.
Totally, absolutely.
It's the only reason it's still in the recollection.
Keanu.
I mean, you can see Keanu is like trying really hard.
Keanu has one mode, which is like, no, I'm sorry. Keanu does not have range, and I will fight you on that. It is a hill I will die on. There is no range in that.
I think everybody who thinks Keanu's a bad actor cites this movie and A Walk in the Clouds, which is reasonable. They're bad.
No, I cite Hamlet, and I will cite it all the time.
He wasn't in Hamlet.
No. Oh, yes, he was.
He was in
Much Ado About Nothing. Much Ado About Nothing.
He made a Hamlet, guys.
Yeah, he was in a Hamlet, but I've never seen the film production of it.
You should watch it because it's bad. It's real bad.
Keanu's like any number of actors who play three ranges really, really well. Like you cannot say he's not magnetic in The Matrix, that he's not magnetic in the John Wick movies, that he's not like, that Speed would have gone nowhere without Keanu at the helm. Like
Bill and Ted.
And also, he is very good at picking good properties.
Yes.
I do not think he is the reason that any of them succeeded.
The River's Edge is my first Keanu movie. Completely unrecognized and forgotten, but so good, so weird. I think he's legitimately gotten better as he's gotten older. Like,
except for Bill and Ted, which I think is kind of his peak.
I don't think he's that bad in this one. I got to tell you, there's a few scenes between him and Al Pacino where he's like, you can tell that he like really put the work into it because he knew he was going to have to act opposite.
But that's the point. You can tell that he is working.
Honestly, I thought his cry scene when, spoiler, Charlize Theron dies was really good. Like that was a desperate.
Yeah, I thought so too.
I will give you that. When he loses his shit after she died, that is decent. But to Helen's point, every time he is going against Al Pacino, you can tell like Al Pacino is just having fun. I mean, but it's like I'm gonna match you. I am so mad right now.
But that's also kind of like,
but it's like at the high school debate club going against the Harvard debate club. Like the high schoolers are good, but they're not in the same field.
Fine, put him in a movie with a lesser actor so you don't see it as much. But when you see it with Al Pacino, he is trying.
Put him in a movie with Chris O'Donnell.
So Keanu actually took massive cut on this because he wanted to do
I'm sure he did. He was like, I'm going to be in a movie with Al Pacino. Right. Whatever, I'll pay you.
So here's the funny part. In order for the film to afford that, because he's a big star at that point, So he's like, I want to do this. I want to work with Pacino. I want Pacino on board with this because he was still kind of like, I don't know about it. He's starting to come around because of the third time is the charm, apparently. Or maybe the fourth time. I don't remember how many times they had asked him. But
the 400 million?
Yeah, so he takes this pay cut, and Pacino finds out about it, that, oh, wait, to get my rate, you cut? And so he took it and donated that amount. And I was like, that's pretty solid, dude.
No one's saying that everybody involved in this movie is a mensch. Everyone involved in this movie is a mensch. I fully admit that. That doesn't mean that all the performances are good.
I do. Okay, let me establish my Keanu fanness. I went and saw 47 Ronin in a blizzard with my friend Justin. We were the only two people in the theater because it was like one of those really bad don't ride the subway blizzards.
So that's how they made that $30.
Yeah, that was us.
I understand why people are obsessed with him. I understand that he is a good person.
Really good person,
He seems
yeah.
to be a very good person. That doesn't mean I have to think he's a good actor.
I will admit, for most of my life, I did not think he was. And then I did not realize how much I appreciated him until I got older. Like up until college years, I was just like, oh, he's Bill and Ted. Like that's kind of the guys he plays.
What made you realize that you appreciate it? Like, what was it that?
I think it was like the John Wick movies,
Yeah.
you know?
Yeah.
And also, what was that one with Something's Gotta Give? Was that the one with
Wait, I'm
where
sorry.
he's-
Something's got to give.
Where he's the boy toy. He's Diane.
where he's the
Yeah.
boy toy? I was like,
All right.
he's actually all right in this. Like,
Well,
this
I will
is
give you the one that I will fully admit is a good performance is Parenthood. I think he is actually very, very good in
I'm
Parenthood.
sorry. Did
What about
nobody
Call Me
mention
Maybe?
My Own Private Idaho? Like,
No.
come on.
I mean,
That's like an absolutely amazing performance with somebody also a very powerhouse presence. River Phoenix, come on, it's great. Oh man.
like my love for Keanu isn't tied to his acting ability. It isn't even
Of
tied to
course
his
not.
looks. Oh, he's beautiful.
He's a very pretty man.
He just radiates
Yes.
goodness, and I like.
I'm sorry,
I just love
For the
him.
listener, I'm sure you
I
can hear
don't
it in
disagree
her
with
voice,
you.
but Bryce got this like beatific
I'm
smile on her
beatific,
face.
yes.
This is the only time we will ever get Bryce to be romantic. Ever.
So cute. Like I meant she's a glow. She's
Ever.
a glow talking about Keanu.
Love him so much.
I totally understand why people dig him. I get the obsession. I just don't think he's that good an actor. He can be he can be totally watchable on screen, which he absolutely is. But that doesn't mean he's a good actor. I will give you like that the Hamlet example that I like to use because he was in Hamlet, and I had just seen when it came out. Liev Schreiber had just done a performance of Hamlet
Oh,
at the Public
fuck.
Theater that I was obsessed
come on,
with.
no.
He was so good in it. And then Liev Schreiber got cast as Laertes in the Hamlet with Keanu.
It's different.
And me watching him perform against Keanu, knowing the performance
That's
that he
just
had
not
given.
fair. That's just not fair,
Every movie
Dana.
Keanu's in that he performs, he's in these movies with these fantastic actors.
I think he
And
learns a
it
lot from
makes
that,
it
though.
just that much more clear that he is not at the same performance level.
Okay, so-
That doesn't mean he's not charismatic. He is.
So I had the same journey with Tom Cruise because a lot of times everybody called him a terrible actor.
Yeah.
And I don't think that's necessarily true. I think he has a very specific range. And I think that Keanu also does that, where he can tap into something very, very deep inside of himself to get to that space, that limited space.
Yeah.
But he also improves the more he works with different directors, different actors, he gets better.
He's a
And-
fine
I
wine.
see that's
Yeah.
where I disagree because I think the performances he gave in his early 20s were
I
better
think so
than the
too.
majority
I
of the
think
performances he
young
gave.
Tom Cruise had more range than older Tom Cruise does.
Oh, I thought we were
absolutely
talking.
not.
No, I was talking about Keanu. Tom Cruise,
Oh.
I think, peaked with Magnolia, which was actually a great performance.
I think
Yeah.
Tom Cruise and Keanu is a good comparison. Like they're both these super mega stars where it doesn't even matter if they're talented, like because
Yeah, but they are.
like nobody cares at that point.
Again, that's what I'm trying. I think that's what I'm trying to say. It's not that I
Right.
am in any way detracting from Keanu's star power. The dude is a star, and that's very
Yeah.
clear. It's more that he's not a good actor, which is a different
So
thing.
speaking of stars, so we have to talk about Pacino because literally it is the only reason people still watch this movie.
Yeah, I mean, totally.
There are parts of this that I unabashedly love, but it's never any of his monologues. It's
Is
always
it when he
these
puts
little-
his finger into the holy water and it
Oh, that
sizzles?
was fun. And
About
like
it?
stares
That was- oh,
directly
that's so good.
into camera.
Yes.
Yeah.
He's like, oh, you get it? Do you get it finally? That
Yeah.
this is what I am? Like, do you want
This is
finally
so subtle,
understand?
folks.
But not even that stuff. It's always like these little moments with him where he has like this little flick of a tongue or he's just wide-eyed
does,
staring
yeah.
at something and he just has this Cheshire grin
Yeah.
all the time. And it is the face of somebody who is enjoying every second of being in this part.
Yeah.
And
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, you're totally right.
oh my God. Those are like the scene in the elevator is always one of my favorites until you get that reveal, which, you know, is, this is based on a book and the book is
Reveal.
When I say quote based on a book, I think it's really, they took like the first few moments of it and then just kind of did their own thing.
Yeah.
So that moment, that wonderful little reveal where he is just like, hello. And you know, these two have met before. And just how it's almost like this claustrophobic, but just like you can't stop looking at him, and you almost are afraid he's gonna like actually say something or do something, but he never does. He's always just like he says, you don't know where it's coming from. You always underestimate it.
Yeah.
You know, I like the shot too, where, and I don't know if this is intentional or not. So that set that they built, you know, when the doors open and it's overlooking and it's like straight down.
Oh my God, terrifying.
By the way, that's real. They built a whole platform. It was 8 feet away from the ledge, but the way they shot it, it looks like it's right over the building top. And, you know, they fill in the water later, but like that whole constructed set piece, that was there, and they were on top of the building.
Wow.
He walks over there and he's got his like little platform. He's got those like couple inch heels on those shoes. And they have that nice shot. And he's looking down at it. And Keanu's got his snakeskin boots and he's very flashy. And he turns around and it's like, you know that he's aware of his stature.
Yeah.
But oh my God, does it get to the point where, like you said, Dana, you're just like, after a while, the volume just was cranked to 10 and never comes down. Like,
there's not many quiet moments. Yeah.
But all the stuff, my favorite parts of him are those like little moments when he's just having asides with people and you start looking. And even that whole scene with like getting Charlize Theron to cut her hair. So
I was about to bring that up.
Yeah.
So creepy.
So that, you know,
because that's how the devil is supposed to get you.
Right.
It's always supposed to be like whispers in your ear, you know, and kind of like, it's not supposed to be huge earth moving, you know, manipulations. It's supposed to be, or picking at your insecurities
like
and the little things that like make you turn against yourself, you know?
Although I will just add, he was right.
He was right. Vanity. Yeah.
He was right about her hair. That perm was awful.
Oh, about Charlize's hair. Yeah, you're right. She did look way better with her natural hair color and no perm. Totally.
That's why he has that line. He's like, I love being right, you know? And again, this is where it gets like so literal, where it's like, oh, she cuts her hair, and then his sister, by the end of the film, she has the perm to look like what Charlize
curly hair. Yeah,
Theron
it's
did.
true. Yeah.
And it's like, okay, but and like there's all these things, and there's the whole thing about like the suits like changing color. It just gets darker
Going from
and darker.
lighter to dark. Yeah.
Right. And it's like, okay, those are nice touches. And, you know, that's a nice shout out to Sarah Edwards.
There's even like a really, really like, I mean, it's such a throwaway literary reference, but when she's painting that room, when she's painting the room in the apartments and she keeps going through the different colors, she wants like green, which is a much more natural, earthy color, to yellow. And yellow, the yellow wallpaper is one of my favorite short stories ever, about this woman who goes crazy in a room of yellow wallpaper. And as soon as I saw it, I was like, oh man, that's a good kind of like literary reference, you know, but it doesn't really pan out to anything.
But I think, again, it's that thing where it has bits and pieces of a good movie in it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then it has the scene where he's like in the red wall and you're like, oh, okay, he's the devil.
I mean, his like office is great. Like all this kind of like set design and everything is amazing, you know, like
I'm going to read this because
we all know that was a Trump Plaza apartment.
It was a Trump Plaza apartment.
With the murder developer guy. Yeah. They're like, what's the douchiest fucking place we can put him in? Here it is. I do want to read this. So this is an excerpt from Roger Ebert's review at the time. Since we're talking about Al Pacino, he mentions like a whole part of this where he's just like, look, you know, it's hard to deny the abilities of an actor who's now like at least a dozen times proven his range and ability, you know, basically since the 70s up to this point. So he's been a dominant figure. But I always like this, where he says, the phantasmagorical final confrontation between the two men, set to the Sinatra's version of It Happened in Monterey, which was an ad-lib by Pacino, and they just went with it, ranges from melodrama to camp. It includes an extraordinary special effect of marble bas relief that comes to life and melts into this licentious orgy. If the whole film were as good as its production design, you'd really have something here.
I mean, the special effects are, I mean, you know, like 30 years later, are good, you know, like
that. The green screen. The green screen is terrible.
Which one?
Yeah. When they're standing on the outside pool area, you can actually see them against the green screen. And I don't even have like a super high def television, but you can actually see the green screen behind them. And it happens one other time too.
Outdoors? No, that's
Outdoors.
actually the set. They
I don't
paint
think
Yeah, that one. The only time they use a screen is when they have that opening door shot.
Are you sure? Because it's
When
sure
they're
as hell
outside,
looks
yeah,
like green screen.
I can share you the
I mean, I
screen.
believe you, it's Randall, but
Yeah,
it
it's
sure as hell looks like green screen. So that's saying something about the filming too.
well, and that's also because they did a lot of. This is one of those things where they did
Which
a lot
they
of
had
cleanup.
people leave.
No, but I'm not talking about the
so-
wide shots. I'm talking about when they're just standing in close up.
Oh yeah, some of that stuff. Yeah, I think that's
It was pretty blatantly green screen.
So this is they do a lot of like digital touch up, but a lot of it's still practical. That shot on
They might
57th Street.
if there was like dialogue, they probably had to do that on a set because
Right,
it would have
yeah.
been too windy out on the.
Yeah, I think that's probably where they did pickups and doing that. But yeah, everything on the actual like wides on that was like them out there, which is kind of terrifying.
Yeah.
But that shot on 57th Street where it's completely
Which is a
empty,
great shot.
Yes,
Such a great
7
shot.
o'clock
That's a great
in the morning
shot.
on Sunday.
I don't know if it reminded anybody else of it, but for those of us that were here on 9/11,
Yep.
that was exactly what it felt like when you
I mean,
walked out.
it felt like
nobody.
it felt like that during a lot of the crazy
Pandemic,
things that
yeah.
happened in
Yeah.
New York.
Mhm.
Like, after Sandy, after
Mhm.
after during the pandemic.
Yeah.
If you went into like Manhattan at any point during the pandemic, some of those streets were so abandoned. It was crazy.
Yeah.
you know? And
Yeah,
it was
they-
just
It had
like,
that. It had that same like
yeah.
negative space of air
Mhm.
quality where it's like
Like
you know,
people
should
had
be
been
there. No one's
plucked
there.
out,
Yeah.
as an adult. That scene, that is the most terrifying scene to me. Where
Yeah.
it's like
No,
all of a
it-
sudden New York is empty.
It's
And-
such a weird moment too, where it's like, yeah, I
It's
mean,
so eerie.
thematically, I get why it's doing. It's like, okay, basically, you're on pause.
Yep.
He's like, you need to make this decision whether you're with the plan or not, because you know
Yeah.
what's up now. Because basically, once she dies in that room, he knows,
Mhm.
and he knows exactly what's happening. Again, it's like there's all these like really great moments, but this movie did not need to be 2.5 hours long.
No, it didn't. No. Was it 2.5 hours?
Yes, it
Yes.
took 2.5 hours out of my life.
144 minutes long, according to Amazon Prime.
It's so long.
Yeah.
How long?
144 minutes.
Yeah. And these are great moments, but yeah, it's just like I think they wrote all these things down.
Yeah, where's the
And they
editors?
had-
Where did the editors
Well, the
go on
editing
this one?
actually, I really did appreciate because there's a lot of parts where they're just moving through. Sometimes, honestly, too fast. It's the way that they ramp up Charlize Theron going from like, "Hey, I'm really enjoying this. We got all the money," to "Fuck you, I hate the city" is
Mhm.
really unexplained. There is a cut.
Like a minute, yeah.
There's a scene out of the party when she's going and she's like, "Don't leave me."
Oh yeah, when she gets really needy and she's like, "Don't leave me, don't
Right.
leave me."
Don't leave me. So she stumbles in. It's at the party. She stumbles in on a threesome happening in one of the parlor rooms. It's the same scene. I think it comes right after they introduce him to Senator Aldamato, who that's actually
Can we
him.
just pause on that for a second? What is up with all of the weird random cameos? Because
There's a
it's basically
lot.
aligning all of those people with the
Yeah.
devil.
Mhm.
I mean, Don
Oh.
King was
Like,
certainly
like,
aligned.
we get it. Don King is aligned with the devil. We
Oh,
got that.
I'm
That makes so
absolutely
many
positive
times.
Aldamato knew exactly what this movie was.
Yeah.
He's also, by the way, the last serving Republican New York senator, U.S. senator. So that was it. It was him, and I can't remember the other guy. But yeah, he was the last Republican ever to serve in New York State. But yeah, he was in office for like 20 years.
Mhm.
But yeah, I think he knew exactly what kind of movie he was in.
Yeah, I'm sure they did. I just think it's hilarious that all of these real life people allowed themselves to be aligned with the devil.
Oh, you know Epstein was at that party. Come on.
Well, here's the other thing. So they shot down in Gainesville, and those are all real locations that they're shooting. That's a real church. And the reason that they convinced the people that are there, some of them are actual, they go to the church.
Congregants? Yeah.
They came in and said, well, this movie is about fighting the devil, which
in a manner.
In a way.
It is. Yeah. They're not
They are
wrong.
technically the good guys.
Yeah. So there was like, okay, that's a little weird, but yeah, sure, great.
That's funny.
Yeah, it's there's so many good like little pieces, but man,
Well, that's
it's
while we're
such
also
a
talking
slog.
about the Gainesville part. Heather Matarazzo does not get enough credit for her scene.
It's
No,
true.
she
She's
doesn't.
great.
No.
She
Yeah.
was great.
She gives, I mean, it's only like 5 minutes of the movie, but she gives a really good performance. And
Yeah.
I wouldn't say she was like the best actress when she started, but this one really kind of amped it up for her.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah. I mean, her delivery of the I didn't want to be the only one was really good. Like when you can pick out individual lines
Yeah,
that were well
yeah.
performed.
And a lot of that, I honestly like Taylor Hadford, who's the director of this. Like he's no slouch when it comes to this stuff. Like he's a hit or miss kind of guy. Honestly, one of my favorites of his is Dolores Claiborne. It's like,
Yeah.
and it's such a great like little emotional piece. He also did Officer and a Gentleman. Gets great performances out of at that time. I would argue not the best speaking of like limited range Richard Gere.
I was about to say that's another good comparison to Keanu and Richard Gere in his day.
In his day, yeah, especially because I think that was right after he did American Gigolo.
Yep.
But so like he can get performances out of people, and I think that's like there was rumors about like him, having a lot of difficulty between him and Al Pacino, but they all make nice now. But that's all like because they had a lot of changeover in the production team. And it's a difficult movie when you have all these like pieces kind of moving together, and that's more than anything. It just feels like it's just a bunch of pieces that isn't quite shuffled together.
I did expect to be shouting, "They took my ovaries, Kevin," way more often during this talk than I have been.
It's true.
They took my ovaries. Yeah, that's definitely like a Hope at Greenwich Village moment right there. It's like, oh God.
So since we're talking about the kind of like assault of Charlize Theron's character and how dirty she got done, that was such a cruel way to like treat that violence against her. Like it was so thrown away and and then having her kind of like expose herself in the church.
That's what I was about to say. Is it like
so gross
that the fact that they take it she sits
to
there
that level
talking about how she's just been raped, and then they literally she's naked in front of
she's naked with
everyone
slices. Yeah. And it's like so not needed. Like she was so much more vulnerable and in pain when she's covered up in her blanket.
And the way they shot it, it wasn't accenting the body horror. They weren't it was like full frontal. Clearly she'd been to
was gratuitous
to the waxer a couple days ago. Like she looked perfect, except she had all these cuts on her, and it was just
it was like trying to be artistic in a way, right?
And the weird thing is, it's almost, and I could be wrong about this, but it felt like almost the same shot that they do with Connie Nielsen when she pretends like she's Jesus, and that one is fully gratuitous and it's intended to be.
But I think you're right, Dana. They look really similar in their
very
setup.
Similar. I think because she's got the blanket out, so I think she actually is in the same position. I'm sure they did that on purpose to mirror it, but it didn't take you back to Charlize. It made you feel like what she had was gratuitous, as was Connie Nielsen's, which it was supposed to be.
Yeah.
There's a wonderful little, I don't know who bothered to do the math on this, but apparently 30% of the film, Charlize Theron, is either in a nightie or underwear or nude.
Wow. I mean, talk about exploitative.
She was 21 in a bottle.
She actually turned down Showgirls because she didn't feel comfortable with nudity on this. And she was like, I understand it.
Yeah.
I mean, there is a difference between the quality of Showgirls and the quality of this movie.
Randall's going to come for you.
Yeah.
No, I love Showgirls. Don't get me wrong.
I absolutely do love Showgirls. I also want to make it very clear. I like Taylor Hackford as a director, but he's kind of a scumbag. He had a whole well,
and I think that was the other thing that we don't even have to talk about his whatever's. The other thing that I really had a problem with here, and that I was actually going to tease Bryce about, they set it up at the end as a romance, as a love story.
Right.
And that the whole reason he's able to become a good person again is that he loses the love of his life. And then he, as a reward for rejecting the devil, he gets her back. But this is like the least respectful to women.
Totally.
That's a little trophy. It's a literal trophy.
Gratuitous nudity kind of love story I've ever seen.
Yeah.
It's a fair point, and you're right to be like, this is a trash movie, especially a trash movie to women. And when I remembered this movie, it was only Keanu, not just Keanu, but it was only Keanu and Al Pacino, and that's all the parts I remember. And I'm like, and Charlize Theron was there. And she cut her hair at one point, and my memory glossed over all the rest of the super shitty stuff.
Honestly, the better film would have been
through Charlize's.
Yeah. I mean, but we've already
minus the gratuitous stuff,
it then wouldn't have been gratuitous because it wouldn't have been everybody kind of
because it would have been
it would have been her kind of like it would have been
that's true.
It would have been the scenes like her in like shopping with those two women who are demons, and the kind of like terrifying.
It was like a whole bunch of SVU alums.
Well, and then honestly, the ending would have been horrific because she had to go through all this, and now she's stuck back
at the beginning,
repeating Groundhog's Day style with a terrible husband.
Terrible husband who like takes her for granted and is saying like, is gaslighting.
That's my other problem is that even though it is a really good performance, like the way that Alex was calling her needy in that the scene where she's begging him to stay, and like the portrayal of her in general, it's very clearly like male gaze. The woman is needy. It's totally not earned that she's
exactly.
Fucking is. He's not home at all.
Yeah,
he has left her in the middle of a strange city with a bunch of
no friends,
monsters.
No one.
He's asking
Exactly.
him to just be a husband, and he won't do it.
Yeah, he has to. Her job is to play politics with his work friends' wives.
Right, but that's her job. But then she also sees at least 3 separate orgies happen before she really starts to lose her shit.
Yeah. So I actually wanted to go back to that because it's like the cut scene. So she walks in on that party with right after this, they meet the senator, and then she walks into this threesome. And she's like, oh my God, I'm really sorry. And they're like, no, it's cool. Why don't you join? And she's like, no, I'm good. Thanks. I gotta go. And then that's when she's leaving and starts asking everybody, hey, have you seen my husband?
Right.
So that makes way more sense that she's suddenly
definitely.
like,
But I mean,
oh, holy shit. No, I do not like these people.
This
I know.
this is not my
that's
vibe.
the other thing is like, I know I called her needy, but like she was also rightfully so because, she's at a strange party with people she doesn't really know, and people that she's already been like, they're weird.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not a huge fan of these people. And he like ups and leaves her to do business when it's not supposed to be a business time. And also to like, not even business. It was like business, what's her name?
I didn't mean to say that you using the word.
Oh no, I know.
Correct. That's the way it's portrayed.
That's what they're trying to do. No, I know entirely. The entire movie is gaslighting Charlize Theron's character.
And that's the fact of the matter is she's not wrong. Like
no, she's not.
There's one point where she's like, yeah, I know my entire job is to like go shopping and like decorate this house, but everything seems like a fucking test that I'm made to fail. Like it's just like I'm assured that I'm gonna fail every time. And it's totally true. Like she's set up to be the nutcase, like she's set up to be like, this is her role. She can't really break out of it. It's like this fate she can't escape, which I guess is like the whole point of it.
Yeah.
Well, and it's another one where it's like every single female character in the movie it's the Madonna, the horror.
Yeah.
It's all awful. Yeah.
All of them, even his mother, they're all there to service the men's story, even though they have more interesting stories.
Yeah.
Yeah. Way more interesting. Like Keanu's story in this, like, what is his name? Kevin Lomax. Yeah. If anything, like that is such a background supporting role because it's like, oh, the lawyer husband who's the big shot, who's super vain and always wants to win. It's like, yeah, those are like, like secondary characteristics that you need in a supporting cast. There was nowhere and that's the problem, is like there's nowhere for him to go. And in substitute of him actually like this slow descent into hell, because originally this film was supposed to be directed by Joel Schumacher, and it was supposed to be much more of a supernatural, special effects heavy film. Brad Pitt was going to be the Lomax character, and it was a more literal interpretation of him like just slowly descending in New York and then finally ending up in the subways, and it's like the 9 levels of hell or whatever, how many levels of hell. Like,
that would have been an interesting movie.
Right. And so I think they held on to some of those concepts, but then didn't appropriate them properly. And so that journey into madness doesn't really work when he's supposed to be your avatar for everybody to watch and go, oh, I'm like, look at how crazy this is getting. And it's like, yeah, it's way more interesting for the outsider who doesn't have a stake and doesn't want anything. Because once you get him to say, you know what, I want this more than my wife, it's over.
Yeah.
Like, it's done. Mm-hmm. And yet we have another hour of the movie.
I know.
It's
you know what I feel like was a real miss and could have been a more interesting movie is following Connie Nielsen and figuring out.
I was just thinking that, Dana, instead of following Al Pacino.
No. Instead of following Keanu, I want to see Al Pacino and how he turned her, because she says to Keanu, I followed the same path as you. I didn't start out like this, but we don't know how she got there and how she.
Well, also, you don't know how old she is, because it's kind of implied that she's been waiting for years and years. Because at the very end, she turns into that like
desiccated corpse,
desiccated mummy.
But also apparently there was an idea that Al Pacino might have raised her, like he played the mother role in her life and possibly raised her. This was a theory that was posited about.
Because she says something to Keanu in that last scene about how she had followed this path. Like she had been on the same path that he had. So I think my interpretation of it, at least, is that she was also probably someone who was just kind of a little bit immoral and found her way to this law firm, and Pacino turned her.
Well, I think we see her speak a few different languages. Yeah. So I think that's the implication, that she's been on this journey longer. Her powers are more developed. Like she's more in touch with it. She's more like the devil.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, because they don't skirt around the fact that he's basically got supernatural powers.
Yeah.
Has the ability to cold read people. And I think that's kind of cool, but they don't really do much with that. Like,
no, they don't.
Be able to use that to his advantage. Instead, they do this like cheapo fake out, like.
But it's that's kind of the theme of the movie, is that they have all these, they put all the chess pieces in place, and then they forget they're playing chess, and they start playing checkers.
And then they just walk out of the room.
Yeah. They're like, oh, that was fun.
But like also
when he causes Jeffrey Jones's demise, which by the way, there is a little bit of weird like schadenfreude pleasure at watching a bunch of people beat that dude to death, because he's not a good person. But that they set up all of these moments where you can see how powerful he is, and that this is just like a taste of how bad this dude is, and they never show you the full picture. Like even at the end, you don't really get a picture of how evil he is or what his power is.
This is the biggest struggle for me with this film, because it's so obvious to me on paper. The reason why they introduce all these characters is just so that they can have an end point. With that Jeffrey Jones bit, he's there to be disposable so that you can see how far he's willing to go and how brutal he can be. The guy he was talking to, the G-Man, there was absolutely no reason for that character to exist.
No reason.
Other than to deliver that line to him. Hey, by the way, that guy that you got off down in Florida, we found a 10-year-old kid in his trunk dead. And it's like, we already know he's a scumbag. You don't need to like do that. And then there's a gruesome kill. And it's like, dude, this is just like, somebody needed to take another pass at this, you know?
Yeah. I mean, before when we were talking about her, like speaking all those languages, like it was also ham-fisted when she's like talking Italian, and it kind of sounded like she slipped into Latin. I was just like, oh, okay.
I do really love all the parts where Al Pacino is just speaking all sorts of different languages.
Yeah, Korean and everything. Totally.
Oh yeah, the scene on the subway is great.
That scene on the subway is good. Yeah,
that is a good scene.
Yeah, he's not scared for a second. Like he doesn't bat an eyelash. You know.
And that's where I think he's really the strongest, is when he's not doing the big
It's true. Yeah, it totally is.
Well, that's the, like Helen was saying, the whole like that's how the devil actually works, is
whispers in your ear and just like picking at those little loose threads in your.
It's not just how the devil works; it's how powerful actors work.
Yes. Yeah.
You go back and watch any of Walken or De Niro or Pacino from the 70s. They didn't do the screaming and the overwrought performances. They were all quiet and subtle and scary as hell. They become less scary and funnier the older they've gotten, because they feel like they need to grandstand and be camp to be relevant still. So I think that the moments when he pulls it back to like 70s Pacino and scary Pacino, those are the things that really work.
Yeah. And what was who's the guy?
Craig T. Nelson? Are you talking about the guy that they're trying to get off?
It cracked me up that Coach was the bad guy.
Really funny.
So one of my favorite parts of that is that shot where he throws the paper, and they're so high up because they're actually up there that you just see it for the rest of the take just flying in the back. And I was like, oh, I guarantee you the cinematographer had a blast with that. That's Andres Bartowak. I can't pronounce it. I'm just but anyway, I'm pretty sure they had a lot of fun with it. No, the gentleman who played his first case,
oh God, yes. Guy. Oh my God, so gross.
That guy is so creepy.
He was in True Blood, right? Yeah, he was Andy.
Yeah. Again, you have these great actors in a scene that literally just like there's no reason for this.
So gross.
Other than like, oh, it's creepy and weird and oh, it's kind of fun. And it's like it's all atmospheric. And it was like, okay, this is fun and all, but like, what did we learn out of this other than
that's the other thing. As I was watching it, unlike
you don't learn anything.
Unlike Bryce, I remember a lot of the pieces of the movie. And I remembered the stuff with Delroy Lindo, but I could not for the life of me remember how it applied to anything else in the movie. And then I realized as I was watching it, it doesn't apply to anything else.
It doesn't. It literally doesn't.
Has no relevance to anything else. And yet we spend a good 20 minutes of the movie watching them.
Yeah.
Just so we can see him slaughter a goat. It makes no sense.
A goat that kind of looks like it could be like a human leg or something. Like you look at it and you're like, is that, what animal is that? You know?
Yeah, there's a lot of these things where it's just like, yeah, this is interesting to look at, but like, what am I getting out of it?
I'd watch a movie about the Devil's Law Firm. I would totally
I'd watch a movie about the Devil's Law Firm.
That'd be amazing.
I also thought it was a total cop-out for Keanu to shoot himself at the end. Like if he actually wants to show that he has control of his own destiny and what he's going to do, like when he delivers the line where he's like, you know, I guess I got to, whatever the final line is, where he's like taking his fate back into, taking it back into his own hands. Walk out the fucking room. You want to actually show like you have control of your destiny and that this guy doesn't have any power over you. Walk out of the fucking room. That's all you got to do.
Yeah, but that's not dramatic.
Yeah,
it could have been.
And also wouldn't start the clock over.
It 100% could have been. Like he throws open those doors and just walks out. I thought like shoot himself in the head and then the slow motion drop while Pacino is like, no, it was just
the
so
big fire behind
you guys
him.
just totally redded out the sound, by the way.
Especially to me, how like when we were watching this, the very opening scene when that door slams open and the press reporter comes in and there's that huge ka-thunk. That's like the big clue, like, oh, we're in the other world now. And it's just like, my God, man, like, I don't know. There's so many like heavy-handed things that are in this. And then doing that whole like such a made for TV moment of like, oh, it was all a dream. And it's like, fuck, really? So what did we get out of all of it?
So what did we learn?
Yeah, what did we learn? Don't let pedos off.
What did we learn is don't join the Devil's Law Firm, which, by the way, I'm going to write that screenplay. Devil's Law Firm. That sounds like an amazing
Wasn't that the whole plot of Angel?
No,
they
were.
Angel was a supernatural detective. Very different.
Yeah, they were supernatural detectives.
Didn't they have a law firm? Didn't they have a law firm?
Wolfram and Hart.
The last season.
What was that? James Spader, Boston Legal. I mean,
but that wasn't the devil.
Yeah, that wasn't the devil. They were just shitty people.
Yeah, and Wolfram and Hart. They were bad guys, definitely, and they were demonic, but they weren't the devil.
Did James Spader ever play the devil? I swear he did.
He must have.
Yeah.
There's no way James Spader hasn't.
He played Jack the Ripper.
Why are we talking about James Spader?
Because it's James Spader and he's great.
Well, now I have to check.
Okay, so while you're checking, I do want to bring up some notable things. So Joel Schumacher was originally going to direct this back in 1994. And it was more mimicking the Divine Comedy, those Circles of Hell. So alternate casting, we already know Brad Pitt was originally going to sign on to that. And that would have been, right after he's already broken out too. So he's young and raring to go. They could never secure a performer to get the devil out of this. And so it just kind of fell apart. And then all this legal drama stuff started coming back into fold in the mid to late 90s. So they were like, oh, let's give it a shot again. So they had approached Ed Norton, Christian Slater, and John Cusack. And I think
any of them,
any one of them could have done a pretty good job.
Was this after Primal Fear? I don't remember.
Yeah, it was right around the same time as Primal Fear. It was, I think Primal Fear was 95 or 96. So it was right after.
And with the John Milton. So Pacino turned this down multiple times, citing the cliched script. He was actually quoted as saying, hey, this feels more like you should ask Redford or Connery to do this kind of thing. And I could totally see Connery doing like a devil.
Oh, totally.
It would have just been like smarmy.
Not Robert Redford.
So the other alternates, speaking of which, Richard Gere and Kevin Spacey.
Yep.
Oh.
I was going to bring up Kevin Spacey earlier and I didn't do it because I know what's going to happen if I bring up Kevin Spacey, but he would have been good.
Yeah, especially at this point in time.
Damn it, Kevin Spacey.
Yeah, why are you asleep at? Yeah, it's interesting because like I think this works solely because you have Al Pacino. There's no other reason. Other kind of fun notables. There was a lawsuit that this movie is. If you because
of the sculpture.
Because of the sculpture in the background. It's real weird to look at it. So they blurred out the sculpture piece because originally it was made
in some of the releases, right?
Oh, in the version we saw, it was like
the only
the version we saw had the sculpture writhing.
Only at the end.
Only at the end we saw, but like the set piece sculpture was not there when we saw it.
Oh, weird.
Yeah. So Frederick Hart and the Episcopal National Cathedral basically sued them because it's very reminiscent of the piece that he had done there. Warner kind of went, okay, we're going to fix this by basically putting a halt on their home video release and putting a disclaimer on the ones that have already like been produced, and then going back and digitally removing the sculptured people which the entire time changes. And that's kind of like the clue. But when it's just the swirls, it makes no sense why there's a long panning shot of swirly stone. And it's like, of all the things, why keep it at the end? I don't know. It must be something with the way that they settled it.
It might have been more transformative when it was moving rather when it was still, like if it's just a still sculpture, then it's not transformative enough to be furious.
Right. I mean, that might have been it.
Was there also a unicorn tapestry at one point?
There was a very quick, but that's just like a background.
The triplet things that he has.
And that would have been, that's out of public domain. I mean, that's like medieval. So
no, that's mine. So Warner, they argued that they designed it without not like complete knowledge of this, but when you see the two back to back, it's kind of hard to.
It's really similar.
This isn't the only source of plagiarism that this film kind of runs into either. So that empty street shot is in another film that came out this exact same year.
It wasn't Vanilla Sky, was it?
No, that's much, much later. But it's a film called Open Your Eyes.
Open Your Eyes was Vanilla Sky.
This is what Vanilla Sky is adapted from.
Right.
But this came out in 1997, same year, and then becomes adapted. They did Times Square as the big empty like street shot with this makeup. But it's at that point you're just like, well, these are both in the production at the same time.
Yeah.
You don't know, no one's seeing that. That one's a little bit more believable than somebody coming up with a whole design sculpture that already exists. It's not like he just made that year. It was like, dude, this has been around.
And they probably would have done it if it was like an older sculpture in a church, it's not under fair use. Like It's just that this was a living sculptor, and so the copyright was still kind of like in effect.
Yeah, and that's something where it's just like I'm sure they pulled the inspiration from and just went, this is great. It's gonna look.
You see like all the kind of like set pieces in his office, like the kind of like brutalist architecture and like the very like modern design, like that's all lifted from like real life examples,
I absolutely love that how you have no sense to anchor you in any of those rooms of which way you're pointing and where anything would exist in an actual building.
It's
so confusing.
Well, and you get that sense of confusion from all of them. Like he's like, where does he sleep? Where like this doesn't make any sense. There's that weird fucking altar that's like built up, and then you find out it's an altar. Like it's not just a big desk; it's an altar where she's putting fucking black candles on it. It's like what the?
Yeah, that's when like honestly, just that last like. I know a lot of people really love those scenes, but it's just like it's so corny at parts where I'm like,
it is
so cheesy.
Yeah. Anyway,
it's a ham and cheese sandwich.
It's a total ham and cheese sandwich.
I would also like to share that James Spader has never played the devil. So James Spader, if you'd like to star,
James Spader, get on that.
No, he's gonna star in my Devil Law Firm movie.
Oh, there we go. Yeah, he's already got law firm experience. Yep. I like it.
I love it.
So I think we should talk about whether this
is this fun anymore. No,
this is fun.
No.
It is still worth in bits and pieces watching Pacino's over the top.
Totally.
The YouTube clips.
That's what YouTube is for.
And I would say it is worth it as a historical record of Charlize Theron's emergence in Hollywood.
Yes.
Her little baby face.
Sure.
Yep. But otherwise, no.
Theron. Sorry.
It should not be remade.
Combined her two names.
No, I don't even think you can remake it. It's just so like
you could, but
no.
What's the point?
What's the point?
There's so many movies out there that already.
It's better to be inspired by it and make write your devil law.
There's so many better versions of this story.
Yeah.
Where it doesn't feel so hack.
Yeah.
And you actually get some development out of your character other than just like a big middle finger, because that's the whole ending to me feels like. It's a big middle finger.
It's just a reset. It's such a cop out, like his death is a cop out.
I was like, because I had forgotten about the part where he shoots himself and it resets. I totally forgotten that.
Yeah.
And when it happened, I went, oh, it's the Bobby Ewing Dallas ending.
Yeah.
Never fails.
Yeah.
Also, why does Pacino then like morph into Keanu at the end?
Yeah.
Like, what's the?
Because
is Keanu actually the devil?
No, it's because Keanu has the recollection from the last life, so he would have recognized Pacino. So Pacino has to be somebody else.
Mm-hmm.
No. I mean, when Pacino is like, no, he turns into like the angelic being, right?
I think so. That was actually done. It was a combination of basically like face molds that were made. one of Keanu, one of Pacino at that point, one that they had acquired from Pacino from like, I think around the Godfather era, and then digitally shifted between the two. So a lot of that stuff was physical makeup that is just like digitally touched up.
I do want to say, if you're going to have Lucifer the Lightbringer, it's going to look like Keanu and not like Al Pacino.
It's true. Yeah, 100%.
It is like a hybrid. It's basically a hybrid of young Al Pacino and Keanu Reeves by the end figure, and then they get the other actor. And it's kind of like, okay, I can see where you're getting it. And then he has like the big wings, and you're like, what the hell is going on? And like, why am I watching this?
I didn't hate the wig. I didn't hate it.
I didn't hate the wig either.
The wig's pretty bad.
I like it. Long hair. Yeah, totally digging it.
Yeah, but it's pretty bad. It's
no, is it a good wig?
No, Lucifer.
I didn't understand. Like,
you know what we haven't discussed though is his dentures.
Oh yeah.
Oh, they were bright. They were real bright.
They were so bright and so clearly a flipper.
That's why, because he's constantly licking them. You know, he had to make sure they were like,
I'm pretty sure it's the same type that they use for toddlers and tiaras.
Yeah, I just
didn't understand why Satan wanted to be a daddy so bad. Like,
I mean
that biological clock is ticking.
Ticking like this, and the guy we're going, he ain't never gonna have an antichrist.
My favorite part of that was like, you want the antichrist, and he's like, whatever. It's like, dude, I'm just trying to get this ball rolling, man.
Yeah, we got to get to Armageddon somehow.
Because in the back of his head, he's like, I got like 9 other different ways I can do this. This is the most fun. Come on. But yeah, like I think the problem with this one for me is that all the fig leaves of how terrible this is rests on the fact that, it's a story about the devil and corruption. But it doesn't cover up the fact that it's just really poorly put together.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, totally.
It's using these things and using, and it really is using all of these really horrible tropes. It uses rape, it uses abuse, it uses all this stuff for no, like, there's no benefit. And I'm just like, I don't see how
clunky.
I don't even see how it actually ties into how it's supposed to make him a better person.
It doesn't.
None of it.
He's not a better person. He ends up exactly where he was in the first place. It's his van.
Yeah,
and
he's just like, call me tomorrow. So maybe he offsets it by like a couple years.
Yeah. That's what I think is such a failed attempt at the love story piece of it. Because if you really wanted to do the love story bit of it, Charlize Theron would have redeemed him at some point, and she doesn't. Like he's turning right back to the dark side within 5 minutes. Yeah. 5 minutes of going back, and he's already back to the dark side.
It's not fun anymore. This movie's not fun
really
anymore.
Not fun.
It's not a good movie.
No, it's really not.
I don't know if it was ever fun. People liked it.
We're good.
I mean, people liked it okay. It was like the 30th highest grossing movie of the year. Yeah. That's pretty middling.
That's middling. So it was meh.
Yeah, I don't think this is really enjoyable. And especially the fact that it is 144 minutes.
So
there's no excuse for that.
No need for it.
Yeah, I'm a very big fan of a tight 90, 100 minutes.
The greatest trick the devil ever played was making this movie 144 minutes long.
Vanity. Definitely my favorite sin.
I see